Well, I just wrapped up a little session trying to figure out how to tune the way I use ChatGPT for solo role-playing in Dungeons & Dragons. And I wanted to go over the prompt that I came up with. I've been doing this, messing around with it since about August of 2023, so under a year or so. And I've evolved through lots of prompts. But this one that I have here, what I'm trying to go for with it, to highlight it, is being very minimal. One of the principles I'm trying to have when I do this solo role-playing is that I don't want to have to do a lot. I don't want to have to program it or come up with describing all the situations. All of this D&D stuff is just out there, and you can kind of tell that ChatGPT knows about it. So I really want to test out this AI is going to take over the world. So let's see how great it is. And it's all right. It takes a lot of work. I'll put this prompt down below. And if you want to see me going through this in real time, you can see the recording of the live stream. It's easy enough to find over in the YouTube. So there's a couple of key things that you do in prompting it. One, you'll see I'm putting things in these curly braces. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to establish this is the way we do out-of-game communication, because there's a lot of that, especially in kind of coaching the AI and doing it. Now, the next thing is pretty obvious. You got to tell it what it is you want it to do and how you want it to perform. And then I'm never really sure if it's fresh on the information it's supposed to use. So I often tell it to read this material. And from what I can tell, I don't know why or how, but it has this material and it definitely knows the rules. You can test this out by quizzing it about what various rules are and how things work, and you'll see that its answers are usually pretty correct. And the next thing is I want to say what I'm doing, because I've noticed that if you don't tell it that there's a separate character, a separate entity, it'll play everything on behalf and you'll just get a transcript as if there were a bunch of people playing it and you're watching it. So I tell it that I'm playing a character, and I'm constantly saying that I am the one who's going to take actions for the character. The ChatGPT thing isn't going to do it, but instead they're going to play the NPCs and the monsters. And then we move on to talking about how it's going to do storytelling. When I'm describing the way I want it to play, I'm going over a few things here. A lot of what you see that I'm highlighting here is kind of the mechanics and giving it the spirit of what it's doing. So I'm emphasizing that I want it to be imaginative and creative, kind of set the tone, because you have to remember in ChatGPT, you can tell it to be very strict and formal. You've got to tell it kind of the style that you want. And you can see I'm repeating again, telling it not to play for my character, right? To actually let me do that and to only narrate what it's doing. Now in the prompt, here's one thing that I've been experimenting with, and that is instructing it that we're doing back and forth storytelling and that it's going to tell a part of the story. And then I, as the player, will narrate what I do next, what the player does next, the other part of the story. I don't really have this tuned or whatever correctly, but I think this will be a good way to make sure that it sticks to its part and makes up its side of the story, that we're passing it back and forth. I think another thing that I need to figure out how to do, because it will reveal surprises that happen, is I need to tell it to only narrate the story from the point of view of the character, not what's going on outside of the view and the knowledge of the character. This next thing I discovered when I was doing the live stream of it, and that is that it didn't really know that it should keep secrets for me. So I was using the goblin ambush in the Lost Mines of Fendelver, and it just told me there's goblins hiding, waiting to ambush you. So I added this part at the end to basically say, don't reveal secrets to me or people's true intentions. I'll have to explore this some more, but you've got to have some way of saying hold back in what you're saying, because otherwise it does tend to just tell you everything that's happening. And then it's also always good to kind of set a tone, right? Because it kind of will default to happy-go-lucky, everything's cool and cheery. The last part is there's more that I want to tell it. So you have to be very specific about having it not start, because when you give it an initial prompt, it will just start right away. But I find that you want to tell it about your character, about the setting, maybe other things like that. So be sure to tell it that you don't want to start until you tell it to start. And then I prompt it to ask me about the character that I'm playing. Now, as you can see, I'm using that curly brace thing. I give it a very, very simple explanation. In this experiment, I didn't really want to get into it knowing about characters and things like that. So I gave it that little piece of information. Now, the issue with the characters is I use Beyond D&D or whatever it is, and you can only export a PDF of your character. And I found that there's very mixed success with getting ChatGPT to use that. So I need to figure out just getting plain text for it, which is fine. I can do that. I think what I'm going to do is come up with a brand new character that I just start as plain text. Now, if you watch the live stream, you'll see that it uses the armor class But at the appropriate time when the goblins are trying to be stealthy and surprise the character, it doesn't really think to use the passive perception like it should. And in fact, you'll see that it just totally messes up the way the ambush is happening by revealing that it's happening. But whatever, it's fine. I'll figure out how to load all of this stuff in there eventually. So I'm going to be doing some more experience with this because I really want to build up a system that really follows this principle of maybe not as easy as possible, but as easy as necessary, where you don't have to do a bunch of programming. You can basically just kind of cut and paste prompts that you have and rely on the existing knowledge that it has of all the stuff on the internet to have a pretty good solo role-playing experience. So if you're interested in seeing more of that, I've got a few more videos kind of going over the theory of this and my experiences of it. But just subscribe to the channel and I'll be putting out some more as I learn how to use ChatGPT to do solo role-playing with Dungeons and Dragons. And also use that to generalize about ChatGPT in general and apply it to other domains.